Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I'm sure this movie needs no introduction. I mean, it is part of the highest grossing movie franchises of all time. The only kind of films that can take up to 70 screenings in one theater, so yeah, if you know, you know. Multiverse of Madness is like the 50th Marvel project if you're including the shows, and just like the title suggests, it's about the multiverse. The multiverse is obviously an idea that Marvel has been expanding upon, and this movie officially brings that concept to the forefront. And this is definitely a loaded movie to talk about. I don't want to be one of those people that sit here for an hour dissecting the movie piece by piece, so I just wanted to give some quick thoughts so that it's easy to bear for both of us. So, is the movie good? Did it pay off for all the hype surrounding it? I think yes. For the most part, I really enjoyed the movie. From the looks of things, it seems that a lot of people are divided on this movie, which I understand, I suppose, but I don't think the things that they're talking about weigh the movie down to the point where it's bad, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. So to start off, I wanted to talk about the good things, the things that I really liked about the movie. First off, the movie is directed by Sam Raimi. If you don't know who Sam Raimi is, he is the person behind the original Spider-Man trilogy and the Evil Dead films. So he's definitely not a stranger to the superhero genre, but at the same time, this is probably the biggest thing he's ever made. I mean, if you look at photos of him before and after this movie, you can tell it aged him a couple of decades. But thankfully, his direction and style do shine through in this movie, and I couldn't be more happier with it. I would say for like the first 20 minutes, I was really worried that the movie was going to be bad because it was a lot of that generic Marvel introduction, but around the time that Scarlet Witch gets introduced, then you start to see a little bit more of that Sam Raimi flair begin to break through. And yeah, Scarlet Witch in this movie is really great. This is the first time I've ever gotten to feel just how powerful and badass she could be, and it was pretty tense to watch. There were a lot of Evil Dead homages in this movie, and they even implemented that a little bit into Scarlet Witch's character, which was really cool to see, and even more so if you're a Raimi fan. The visual effects in this movie overall are some of the best in the entire MCU. Yeah, there are some hiccups here and there, and of course you can't forget about the briefcase man who runs through the same shot like 5 times. Other than that, this movie is amazing to watch, especially if you go to IMAX to see it, which is how I saw it. There's a lot of fun stuff being done with the cinematography here. They're jumping through multiple universes in this movie, so there's a lot of contrast and variety to what they each look like. It's a gorgeous looking movie, there's no doubt about that. Danny Elfman is also someone who's worked very closely with Sam Raimi. He did the score for all of his Spider-Man films, and he came back to do the score for this one, which was really cool to hear. He definitely has a specific likeness to the point where you just know that it's him. And there are even some moments in this film where there's no music playing at all, which I thought was terrific and really great at building tension. The performances in this movie are great too for the most part. Some of them are playing multiple versions of themselves, so that's pretty impressive. Overall though, the biggest appeal to this movie for me is that this is definitely the most daring live action MCU film yet. There's a lot of breaking away from formula in this, and even in the film's story, I was surprised at some of the things that they were able to add. It really felt different and a bit more mature than what we've seen before. However though, I don't want to praise the writing too much because it's definitely one of the things I've had the most problems with in this movie, and that's how I'll segue into the things that I didn't really like about this movie. So the most obvious is the story. It's a bit of a mess. There's obviously a lot at play here, so it's evident that some problems would follow with that too. Characters in this movie can be really dumb, which is something that's bound to happen when you have multiple writers handling these characters. How they act and behave varies from movie to movie, so that causes a big consistency problem with most of these characters. Doctor Strange, for example, there's a battle towards the beginning of the movie where he's fighting a big giant monster, and you would assume that they would take it into the mirror dimension, but no, they continue fighting in the city, and they cause so much damage, but then the movie just quickly moves away from that, and then you forget that it even happened. There's just a lot of moments where you feel like a character would be a lot smarter than how they act in this movie, but that's a feeling that lingers throughout this entire movie. Also, character arcs in this movie were kind of underwritten as well. I'll tread lightly so I don't spoil anything, but what the fuck. There's one character in particular which I was super disappointed at where this movie left them off. It felt like one of those corny cop-outs that I hate so much, but it is what it is, I guess. The final thing I want to touch on does include minor spoilers, so if you don't want to hear any of that, then you can skip to this time. Okay, that is plenty of time. So I won't say who appears in this movie, but I can say that there are cameos in this movie, and I'm split pretty 50-50 on them. Yes, it's cool and all once you see them for the first time, but the more time you think about it, the more they feel shoehorned in. I mean, I get the purpose that they served, which I thought was cool and surprising, but at the same time, it also makes me question what was even the point. Because yes, obviously one of these characters are definitely coming back, there's no doubt about that, but what about everyone else? This is the part of the movie that feels very corporate and distracting from everything else. I'm sure this is where Marvel had to step in because they saw how well it worked out for Spider-Man. So yeah, some of these cameos felt kind of pointless to even include, but I guess it's their way for marketing movies now. You gotta watch it so you can be part of the hype. I mean, it's all that social media is talking about anyways, so I guess it is working. But the point I'm trying to make is that the cameos didn't sit super well with me afterwards, but I'm sure everyone will have their own opinion on that. And yeah, that mostly sums up my initial thoughts after my first viewing. Despite the many issues this movie has, I still think it's one of the more better MCU films, and seeing Sam Raimi return to the superhero genre did not disappoint. Seriously, if you're a fan of his work, especially his Evil Dead films, then this movie will serve as a treat. I do recommend the IMAX experience if you're able to do that. I cannot emphasize enough how fun this movie is to watch on the big screen. It's definitely one of the best looking films in the entire MCU. But that's going to wrap up this video. Of course, let me know all your thoughts in the comments. Thor Love and Thunder is coming pretty soon, so we won't have to wait long to see what follows. I know I'm excited, but thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.